I'm Mario Cordero, Chief Executive Officer of the Port of Long Beach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Port Update. My guest today is Rex Richardson, the 29th Mayor of the City of Long Beach. The Port of Long Beach is one of the busiest seaports in the world, and the staff of the Harbor Department of the City of Long Beach, myself included, administer the port. As a City Department, we are particularly honored to have Mayor Richardson as our guest. Welcome to Port Update, Mayor Richardson. So let's go back a little bit and give us lessons learned, or how do you see your 2 years and what's coming the next 2 years?
Well, I'll tell you, these past 2 years, I'm a recovery mayor. We've come in 2022, into 2022, we were seeing the effects of the pandemic that really ravaged the city in terms of our economic mix, the health of our city, the status of our small businesses from 2020 and 2021. And those 2 years, you saw homelessness increase 62%. And so what our job really has been is to guide that recovery. And so we've made some real progress. We're in a much healthier fiscal position as a city. Our capacity to manage homelessness and all those challenges have been improved. And so I would say the past 2 years have really been about overcoming big challenges as a city to position ourselves for growth. We're proud that, we saw, again, that homelessness increase at a very rapid rate. But last year, for the first time after we declared a state of emergency, we finally saw more people exit homelessness than enter for the first time in 7 years. And we saw a decrease in homelessness. And that wasn't just here in Long Beach. It was across LA County and the city of Los Angeles. So it showed that something's happening in the region. We're finally beginning to see things stabilize post-pandemic. We've also placed a big focus on hiring. It's been a big focus for you. It's been a big focus for our departments. So that's been a big challenge for us, and we'll talk a little bit later, but we've made some real progress on just like modernizing our systems to be able to do a better job at hiring, because all the services that people care about in our city, from your waste collection to a first responder in an emergency, all those services are performed by people, and the workforce has changed since the pandemic. So the way that we hire, the way that we onboard, the way that we respect the dignity of workers has to change as well.
Well, Mayor, I must say it's been a very difficult issue overall, particularly in the state of California, the urban settings. This issue of homelessness much challenging, but on the other hand, the good news that here in Long Beach there's much progress.
Making a lot of progress.
So with that, you also have this concept of the vision of Opportunity Beach.
That's right.
Can you define that for us, and what's the progress on that?
So Opportunity Beach is essentially a value system that says here in Long Beach, we believe that everyone, no matter the part of the town you live in, no matter your income, the language you speak, your background, you should have the opportunity to lead your most full life and your highest and best potential. And it's also about taking big challenges and creating big opportunities. So we talked a little bit about the hiring challenge, right? So if you know that more people are working from home or more people are resigning from jobs, that creates opportunities, right? Vacancies are opportunities to bring in people from our local communities to serve in government jobs. How's that an opportunity? Well, let's think about this generation of worker. This generation of worker, let's say fresh out of college, ready to go into public service. This person is dealing with more student debt than any generation in American history. Right. This generation is dealing with rising housing challenges. Like, coming out of college, we're all poor. We all have roommates, but it's a different situation for this group when they're dealing with, having a couch surf or have multiple people living together just to have a little bit of independence. And the process of getting a job is it's long, it's arduous, it's difficult to navigate. And so if we could simply open up the doors of government to make it easier for this generation of worker to come in and get a career in the city, you solve almost all of their problems. Because if you work in government for 5 years, you vest and get a pension. This generation has, that's rare to still have access to a pension. You get access to health care. Because it's a union job with collective bargaining, you can make a living wage so you can afford housing. And if you work in government for 10 years, your student debt is canceled. And so all the challenges of this generation have become opportunities to work in government. That's why we place such a big focus on hiring. And most recently at the ballot, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but most recently we put forward Measure JB, the Long Beach Jobs Promise, a comprehensive measure to fundamentally transform a hiring system in the city, create a single unified hiring department for the first time in a century, a single unified hiring department, and place an emphasis on individuals who live in our city gets a preference. If you went to school at our local institutions like Long Beach State and Cal State Dominguez Hills, Go Toros, my alma mater, or Long Beach City College or Compton College, all the universities and colleges within a 10-mile radius, you get a preference on city jobs. Or let's say that you're a part-timer and you've wanted that permanent classified job with the protections. Well, now you get a preference because you've served in that temporary part-time position. Or let's say the job doesn't require a degree, because many of our positions do not require a college degree. Then you can get same credit for an apprenticeship or a training program that's qualified. And so that's what the Opportunity Beach agenda is about. It's taking the challenges that all cities and all governments are facing and turning it into real opportunities to make a meaningful difference in the lives of our residents. Another big example I'll just share is, we are an oil providence. We talked about it last time I was here on your show. And as an oil providence, we've balanced our budget with a significant amount of oil revenue every single year. And much of our investments from the acquisition of the Queen Mary and others, have come from oil revenue. Well, as we move forward, we know that that's not a revenue source we can depend on the way we have in the past. California is moving away from the production of fossil fuels, so that creates a challenge for Long Beach. Opportunity Beach agenda is about taking that challenge and turning it into an opportunity. This is an opportunity to invest in new industries like space and aerospace and advanced manufacturing. And we're seeing some real progress. Long Beach is one of the fastest growing space clusters in America now. We just announced Ford Motor Company coming to Long Beach to do all their research and development for their future EV campus. So they're going to design the next line of electric vehicles under $25,000. All of that R&D is taking place in Long Beach. Lots of advanced manufacturing like Vast Space, building a space station, an artificial gravity space station. The first one, the first commercial space station in history is being built here in Long Beach. Those, just that is already north of 500 jobs over the past year that have been created just at that one company. And why does that turn into opportunity? Well, if we built a warehouse, you might have just a few jobs, a few warehouse workers, maybe minimum wage, maybe living wage, if it's a union warehouse. But if you're going to fill it up with advanced manufacturing, you're talking someone can go to Long Beach City College, get a welding certificate, and make $45 an hour building a space station in Long Beach. That's creating real meaningful opportunities to change lives. That's what the Opportunity Beach agenda is about.
Well, it's certainly great for the city, great for the city residents.
Yeah, sure.
Let's move to another area. You kind of touched on it, Mayor.
Sure.
We just went through some recent elections, so I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question. One with regard to the local elections,
Sure.
and I'll get into the federal level of what we're seeing next year. So let's talk about the local elections.
Sure.
You kind of touched on Measure JB, and first of all, again, that for our viewers that may not know, it passed overwhelmingly.
That's right.
So obviously you've kind of touched on what it means, not only in terms of more efficient hiring process, but what it means to Long Beach residents and students. So could you expand a little bit on the local elections? We had several measures that with your leadership did pass. With that, could you comment a little bit more in terms of how you see 2025 in terms of those measures passing and the impact it's going to have?
So I would say, there are a lot of mixed feelings about, obviously, the national election. But locally, we're really proud of the voters in LA County and in Long Beach because we put forward an agenda on the ballot that addresses many of the big challenges that are facing cities. And each of these measures passed overwhelmingly. So in Long Beach, we talked a little bit about the oil transition, the need to diversify our revenue and to maximize our revenue in other ways because we can't count on oil the way that we have the last century. Oil's played a big part in our past. It won't play as large of a part in Long Beach's future. And so one measure that we put forward, a revenue measure, it was a tax measure that did not directly tax local residents, but our utility users tax is paid by every business in the city, and every resident, every renter, with a light bill, gas bill, they all pay utility users tax, except for 2 power plants. We worked with our auditor. We identified that the significant lost revenue here, as much as $100 million between now and 2030 of lost revenue. And so we put this question forward to the voters. Should these 2 power plants pay their fair share? And overwhelmingly, 81% of voters adopted a tax measure. That is unheard of for 81% of residents to adopt Measure LB. So thanks to the residents, that helped secure our general fund. Our general fund is one of the funds that is typically very vulnerable because all of the actual positions, police officers, firefighters, park employees, libraries, a lot of the services we count on are in the general fund. So that helped shore up the general fund. There's still more work to do, but that was a big step. The second thing that we did is we've placed a big focus on hiring. We've done, we've sped up background checks. We've gotten rid of physicals when they're not needed. We've done everything we can, but there's only so much blood you can squeeze out of that turnip without changing the fundamental system. So we began with a question. Is there a way to achieve 90-day hiring as a big agency? 90 business day hiring is already done by certain small cities. Hermosa Beach does 90-day hiring. But we'd be the first agency in California to achieve 90-day hiring if we modernize our system by bringing together the best of our civil service in terms of protections and the best of HR and the innovation in creating one single hiring department while still protecting employee rights, while still working and having labor at the table, having a seat at the table to make sure that we protect and in fact embolden and strengthen labor protections. And we were able to move that forward. That became Measure JB, the Long Beach Jobs Promise, and it was adopted at, I think, 62% of the vote, which it was that's a strong win. I think our research early also it showed that our residents are ready for something new, a new way to address old challenges, and this now equips us with the tools that we need to finally achieve 90-day hiring. And while we're at it, we finally adopted our local preference program, the most robust local preference program in America. We haven't found a single city that has done local preference the way we've done it by prioritizing not just local residents, but also local students and graduates. And so this is a big innovative way for us to address this challenge of hiring. We just began our implementation. A part of this in the Human Resources Department, there'll be a new bureau called the Talent Management Bureau, made up of former employees of civil service and HR working together to expedite the talent recruitment process. And so we'll be able to be out in more places recruiting people, establishing more pipelines into city jobs, working with our partners like Long Beach City College, Long Beach State, Compton, and Cal State Dominguez Hills, and our community partners to make sure we build real pipelines into jobs. So we feel really optimistic. The last thing that I'll mention on the local measures, well, actually 2. One, Port of Long Beach cleaned up its charter and added some important clarity to the way that you hire, which is going to actually help improve the hiring process here with Measure HC. So I want to congratulate you, Mario, and your Harbor Commission for your leadership. That was adopted by the voters as well, and I know it's been an outstanding question on some of the clarity in the charter. And the port is incredibly important institution and enterprise for the city. So and we want to make sure that we do all that we can from a good government standpoint to protect it. And so we're glad that Measure HC passed. The last thing I'll say is that, countywide, one of the biggest things we needed to do is find a big, bold solution on affordable housing and homelessness. The homeless funding was set to expire at the end of 2026, but LA County voters came together to address Measure A, and that was adopted. And that's a big win, not just for LA County, but also for Long Beach, because for the first time, we'll have not only homeless funding, but dedicated funding for affordable housing production for the first time since the loss of redevelopment in 2013. So in over a decade, in more than a decade, we haven't had dedicated funding, and we finally have that thanks to the voters of LA County.
Well, that's great, Mayor. I mean, we're talking about what you've been able to accomplish in 2 years. So I think, again, that's a great resume of success. And as a department head of one of the major departments in the city, I could pretty much say that all my colleagues who head the other departments are just extremely pleased with this new role that we're going to have as departments and moving forward with more efficient fluidity in the hiring process. So now let's talk about the federal level. We're going to have a new administration come into play, and they sometimes have a different view of things. So how is Long Beach preparing, and specifically yourself, in terms of that new administration? What do you think those issues for the city of Long Beach, what opportunities may be there for us?
Well, I'll tell you, again, it's a lot of mixed feelings about the outcome of the national election. But we're not election deniers, and the people have made a decision. And so as a mayor, you really have to be pragmatic and think about what the pathway forward is. There are some things that we stand up and we value in the city of Long Beach in terms of we value diversity, inclusion. There's an undocumented population in Long Beach who's very well embedded into our communities. Children attend our schools, members of our community, work in our community. And we're going to do what we can to protect those communities. We know there's been a lot of rhetoric against the LGBTQ community. There's a lot of, we saw last time, increases of hate speech, incidents of hate violence, and we're going to keep, we're going to make sure that we stand up for our values and protect all of our residents, no matter how you pray, no matter who you love. We're going to do what we can to protect you. But I would also say we have certain national and economic interests as well that we have to be very strategic about. The Port of Long Beach, we are breaking records in terms of cargo. A lot of jobs and economic interests are connected to our port. 1 in 5 jobs in Long Beach are connected to Port of Long Beach. And we're heading into an endeavor to green our port even further. One of the big projects is Pier B on-dock rail facilitation project, which is incredibly important. It's important. It's national significance. It'll move our cargo to 38% on-dock rail. Really proud of that. That is largely driven by federal dollars. And so we have to think about ways that we can prioritize bipartisan priorities. How can we work together with bipartisan groups of mayors, bipartisan groups of members of Congress to prioritize things like infrastructure? Because infrastructure should be bipartisan. It should be something we can all agree on. So I'll be engaged there. Housing is incredibly important. I know that there's conversations about changes federally, and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and low-income tax credits, which has been the largest driver of affordable housing nationally. Well, we have to be at the table for that. So I'm proud that I'm chair of a bipartisan coalition of mayors called Mayors and CEOs for U.S. Housing Production. I just came in as a new chair, as one Democratic mayor, one Republican mayor, who worked together to try to find common sense solutions that advances housing production, which again should be a bipartisan issue. So we're looking across our industries. We talked about Ford, we talked about space. How can we pay attention to what the administration does in terms of funding at DOD, support at NASA, the different areas that are directly connected to space, but also what's the attitude and the posture around electric vehicles and things like that, because we're investing in Long Beach and open up our doors to advanced manufacturing. And so we're going to make sure that we're engaging at every level to protect our priorities, but to also make sure that we continue to move Long Beach forward, no matter who is the president.
Well, great to hear. You kind of touched on the commercial operations here in Long Beach, and as our viewers, or some of our viewers know, and some of our viewers should know, that for the month of October, the Port of Long Beach moved 980,000 TEUs.
That's outstanding.
In 1 month. It's a historical mark in our 113-year history, and that number puts us at the #1 port, at least for that month.
That's right.
And we're looking to maybe 9.5 million containers by end of 2024.
That'd be a record, right?
So it would be a historical record for us. Now, combine that with our friends at the Port of Los Angeles, you're looking to a total around 20 million. So from a commercial view, we're doing very good. We have a very good economy. Consumers continue to spend, which is good for the economy, good for the GDP, and obviously good for the Port of Long Beach. But let me ask you a question with regard to another very important subject for the Port of Long Beach, and that is the whole issue of what we do on the climate change environmental column. Decarbonization. I was in China just a couple months ago back, and it was to be present for a collaborative effort with China
Right.
on green corridor decarbonization. And I
Right.
have to tell you, I'm pretty impressed how this issue of decarbonization has now been embraced by our industry, be it ports, be it
Right.
international carriers. Can you comment a little bit about how you feel with regard to the city's input on decarbonization? You've been a big leader on the environmental front. So what are the opportunities here for the city, and particularly how we collaborate, that is the Harbor Department, with the city?
You know, we're a city who believes in climate action. We have a climate action plan. We work very closely with our port. We are a leader. I think there are obviously some big opportunities, but some big challenges ahead. Before we even get into that, you know, as you were talking about our leadership and the numbers and all of those things, I need to touch base. I need to touch on tariffs. I am concerned about the conversation on tariffs because we saw the impact last time there were tariffs and the challenges associated with the supply chain issues. My hope is that there's a more thoughtful conversation, and I'm willing to engage in that thoughtful conversation nationally and internationally about how we prepare if that were to be the case, and how we make sure that we prioritize supply chain issues. Because when the supply chains breaks down, there are climate, there are environmental considerations, there are economic considerations. That has to be a priority. Now, to decarbonization. This is an economic and environmental imperative that we do so, and we're going to continue to show leadership. Most recently, I issued a statement with Mayor Bass in Los Angeles about our commitment to a zero emission infrastructure plan in Long Beach that is human powered. Zero emission infrastructure plan that says, you know, as we transition away from fossil fuels, we do so in a way that prioritizes jobs, do so in a way that cleans up our air. And when we invest in things like charging stations, like Long Beach has been a leader, and we've you know, I think we asked you to do 100, and you've surpassed that already. I think we asked you to do 100 charging stations in 3 years, and I think in the first year or 18 months, you've already surpassed the number. But when we invest in that type of infrastructure, it creates jobs, union jobs, and when they plug up and charge, it creates a revenue source for the city through utility users tax, which helps our transition off of oil revenue in our city. So it's all connected. All the things we're doing at the port, the steps we're taking in the city are all related to decarbonization. The other thing I'll say is, you know, our city, our general fund has been supported by oil money for many years, and our Tightlands Fund, two separate funds. Uplands goes into general fund. That's the revenue generated from the production that takes place outside the Tightlands zone. So upland, and Tightlands is everything from those oil islands and everything south of, say, Ocean Boulevard. Well, we're on track. We're on course, and I called for this at the State of the City last year. We're on course to transition the general fund, all the Uplands funds out of the general fund for services within 5 years. So by 2029, we'll be completely off of oil money for the first time in a century in Long Beach. That's a big deal. Measure LB that just was adopted by the voters has significantly helped that progress. Now, if funding still comes in, you use it on capital. You use it on one-time needs. Pave more streets, fix more infrastructure, fix a community center. But you won't be funding police officers, firefighters, and those jobs because those have a pension and they come back every single year. So the structural funding is coming out. In the Tightlands area, we have to do more to diversify and reduce our dependence on oil. This is all related to decarbonization. So we've got to look at things like entertainment, you know, maximizing leases in the Tightlands area, creating a new future of tourism for the city. All of those are long-term plays, but they're sustainable, they're clean, and they create jobs, and they reduce our dependence on infrastructure. Last thing I'll say, when we travel and meet with, you know, when we go to Copenhagen or you know, Switzerland or wherever to meet with these international trade leaders and strengthen our relationships, they're just as concerned about decarbonization as we are.
Right.
And the big question is, how are we going to decarbonize the shipping lines? Even if we built all the infrastructure we need in our port, the largest driver of poor air quality are the shipping lines, are the ships. And so In order to decarbonize those ships, you're going to need alternative fuels. You need places to bunker and store alternative fuels. And that's still an outstanding question in the San Pedro Bay complex. Until we can solve that question, because you're not going to have electric-powered ships. Not anytime soon are we going to have electric-powered cargo vessels bringing cargo from across the Pacific from Asia to the United States. So we're going to have alternative sources. But that infrastructure has to be in place. Hydrogen, we have to explore what other alternative sources look like and how we create the infrastructure here, how we agree on what that is. And until that decision is made, it's going to be very difficult to really expect an international shipping line or trade line to create a green shipping corridor. So this has to be a conversation we have to show leadership on what are we going to agree on in the international community as that next source if we're going to take the next big step in decarbonization.
Well, that is the $64,000 question.
That's it.
And I have some ideas about that, Mr. Mayor, in terms of solutions. However, we'll save that for another show so we can really get into the weeds on that topic. Let me, you made reference to the state of the city.
Sure.
I know that we're only a month and a half.
That's right.
A few weeks from the state of the city 2025. So maybe you could give us a little precursor or a little highlight in terms of what that's going to look like. I know that sometimes you like to make these big announcements at the state of the city, so I don't want to give away any announcements here, but give us an idea of how you see 2025.
Well, I won't give anything away, but I'll tell you, my first State of the City, I was in office 20 days. It was January 10th, and I was sworn in December 20th. So the first State of the City, we focused mostly on my Opportunity Beach Agenda 100-day plan. What am I going to do as a brand new mayor in my first 100 days? Right? We set some goals, visit 100 businesses in 100 days, and all of these things. But it was really about planning for a strong administration, thinking about what are we going to do to address this big challenge on oil. What are we going to do to address the big challenge on vacancies and hiring? How are we going to show up and step up, build more capacity around homelessness? Now here we are 2 years later, and we're in a very different place. We're able to tell the story on 2 years ago. We were not equipped. We didn't have the capacity on homelessness. But this year, we have Measure A. We have La Casa, where I serve as the chair of the Regional Affordable Housing Agency. We have Prop 1 was just adopted in March by the state, Mental Health Services Act reform, which builds more capacity for localized mental health and residential mental health support. On hiring, we've finally adopted Measure JB, and we finally have a bright future on hiring. There are even changes in terms of accountability and what's happened with Proposition 36 and what does the new reality look like in terms of criminal justice reform. There's a lot. We've come a long way from the days of the beginning of 2022 to today. So we're going to recognize a little bit of that on how far we've come, look at what we set out to do and look at where we are today. But then we're going to talk about some very exciting progress that we're making, some very fun and exciting progress that we're making in Long Beach that will help us build the economy of the future while leaning into arts and culture and tourism.
Well, Mayor, I'm certainly looking forward to that presentation. I know, again, it sets the tone for 2025.
Absolutely.
And let me move forward, and I'll ask you one last question, which I think it's very dear to your heart in terms of the time you've expended this year on this subject, and that is the 2028 Olympics. Now, you were in a delegation that went to Paris.
That's right.
Collaborating at the invitation of LA Mayor Karen Bass. So the both of you were there representing Southern California, the greater LA metropolitan area. And I'm sure the viewers are aware, you've been very vocal with regard to the optimistic impact that Long Beach particularly is going to have from those games, the Olympic Games. So could you give us a little bit more information with regard to where are we now in terms of the planning? And again, for the viewers who do not know, you played a big part in having Snoop Dogg here in the video that was shown in Paris, which was Long Beach, not Venice.
That's right.
So comment a little bit more about the aquatic-related events that we may see here in Long Beach.
Yeah, absolutely. So Long Beach has a big aquatics history. We have experience in having big events like the Long Beach Grand Prix, celebrating 50 years. It's the second largest street race in America. 200-mile-an-hour beach party with 200,000 people. So we're used to having big events and managing large-scale special events. We also have been a participant in the Olympics of Venue City. This will be our third time. 1984, 1932, when Marine Stadium was built. So there's a lot of history here. You also have a community, a built-in community in Long Beach that is very connected to international sports. Our yacht club and the sailing community, many of them were out in Marseille and participating and supporting sailing. Rowing community. You've got water polo, where we had 4 people from Long Beach on the men's water polo team in Paris that brought home the bronze. 4 individuals, right? We've got Tony Acevedo. You've got Olympians like Misty May and all these individuals from Long Beach. So it's already a built-in ecosystem. So from there, the question of the Olympics is how can our entire region show up and put on some games that are authentic, that really demonstrate the best of our whole Los Angeles region, and you cannot demonstrate a complete Los Angeles region without Long Beach. We are the Southern California's premier waterfront. When you turn on the news every day, it's that shot, the beautiful, iconic downtown Long Beach, the Queen Mary, our beautiful waterfront, and we're a part of this ecosystem in Southern California. And when you think about even the culture, from music to skateboard to the food to the culture, all of that, Long Beach is very much that Southern California contributor to that broader LA tapestry. So that's why we were proud that during the closing ceremony, that was highlighted in Long Beach. You had Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, you had Red Hot Chili Peppers, Billie Eilish in Long Beach. Very clear, what's up LBC, right? And we look forward to demonstrating that. Now in terms of our slate of events, everything has not been announced yet. The entire Paralympic slate has not been announced yet. But I will tell you, we'll be a major aquatic center, we'll be a major venue city, the second largest outside of Los Angeles, and a major Paralympic center. So we look forward to hosting water polo, lots of excitement around water polo, artistic swim, triathlon. We have a big Long Beach triathlon, and so there's a lot of excitement there. There's marathon swimming. There's rowing, which originally was in 1932. Lots of excitement there because they can really pack out the course and build stands and have an exciting race for rowing. Sailing, canoe sprint. Our arena will be activated. There are, I believe, 2 events planned for inside the arena. And there are, in the entire slate of para events, only one has been announced, which is artistic, which is para swim. But the entire slate of Paralympic events should match the number of events for the Olympics. So, you know, when we finish the process, you know, City of Los Angeles still has the vote. There's a little bit of negotiation still to take place. When that happens, we know that we're going to play a big role in the experience. And I think it'll be great, not only for Long Beach, but for just the Olympics in general. Because if once people come to the region, just get to Long Beach. Take the A-line, just get to Long Beach. Or stay in Long Beach in one of our hotels. But if you get here, everything's walkable. We can circuit people from venue to venue. Shop at our restaurants, enjoy our museums, walk down our streets, because you're gonna get a beautiful downtown experience, a beautiful waterfront, and great climate and great weather. So we're certainly looking forward to our role in the Olympics, and this is an opportunity for us, I think, to in many ways catalyze this to boost tourism moving forward in the city of Long Beach, especially with our additional capacity. The Fairmont's opening this week. We have plans for more hotels and more focus on tourism, arts, and culture in our city.
Well, I think what we've heard here, we've had a lot of progress, great developments for year 2024, and looking forward for 2025. And absolutely, 2028 is going to be big for Long Beach, as well as Los Angeles, of course. But with that, Mayor, thank you so much for coming to Port Update.
Thanks,
and
Mario.
For our viewers, again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to our next setting of Port Update. We will continue the conversation about the progress not only that the Port of Long Beach is making with regard to the commercial aspects, the environmental initiatives, but of course the city overall, as we are a port city or a city port, however you want to view it. But again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I look forward to the next update.
Thanks a lot.